In his free time, Shreyas creates crypto and Web3 content on LinkedIn, which and also helps with Formula SAE as a business judge, volunteers with AdCraft Detroit as well. Shreyas, I looked up your profile on LinkedIn and found an interesting podcast called Web3 Chutney. So we'd love to know a little more about that. We're very, very excited to have you on board. And over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Do you mind if I share my screen for a little presentation?
Sure, that would be great.
Sweet. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes, it's visible.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you for having me. And yeah, let's talk about all things Web3 and the business impact in the future. So before we get started, you did give a little introduction of me, but that's kind of what it's on LinkedIn. So what it looks like is, yes, I graduated with mechanical engineering. I moved on to do aerospace engineering after that. Then I did product management at Stellantis, got my MBA, and then got product marketing at OKCoin. But the real story is kind of all over the place. So I graduated from my 10th grade from Pravashi in Nasik. Then I moved to Pune, Ferguson College. I failed 12th standard, but I still somehow made it over to do engineering in the US. I didn't like engineering as much as well. Still graduated engineering, had a few H-1B visa issues, got a position as a data analyst, then moved on to be a product manager, then got an MBA in marketing. And then my path kind of dived into a couple different things. I do Jump. I did Crypto Academy with a big influencer called Anthony Pompliano. I create content, and then I also do product marketing at OKCoin. What I'm really trying to say with this is, doesn't matter how your career journey looks or what anybody has told you, you can always find a way to make your mark in the world. So with that, let's switch to what we will cover today. And we'll start by talking about blockchain and then all the core concepts that form Web3. And then we'll talk about the future of business, because I don't know what everybody's understanding is of just the subject matter. So I don't want to just jump into everything right away. So first stat is just to understand why we're even here, why this is important for everybody that is listening over here. $81.5 billion is the expected market cap for Web3 by the end of this decade, which is very, very, very significant and definitely worth paying attention to, no matter who you are, no matter where you are. With that, what is blockchain? So blockchain, what you see on the first image, the top right, that's what blockchain looks like visualized. It's just literally blocks by blocks by blocks by blocks of information and transaction. It is peer-to-peer, so it is no single point of failure. It is permanent. Everything that is written in the blockchain is it stays there. It doesn't go around anywhere. It's a ledger of record. Everyone has one source of truth. And when I say everybody, it's literally any information on the blockchain, anybody can look it up. So with that said, there are multiple different blockchains, which is everything that you kind of hear about, which are cryptocurrencies, which are just payment methods. And to simplify blockchain even further, I wanted to show this little diagram. Is banks or any central organization is one central entity and everybody is connected to it. In blockchain, we're all connected by this little web of information going from me to you to somebody else, and everybody is verifying each other's information. And if it's further visualized, this is what blockchain looks like in a little easier to understand way as well, is different transactions coming from different sources, like you see over here, We have MetaMask over here. We have OpenSea. So all these are different protocols where you can interact with the blockchain. That brings us to our next point. What is an NFT? NFT is a non-fungible token. It cannot be replaced. It is verifiable. Anybody in the world knows who creates it and who owns it at any given point of time. And when I say any given point of time, it can be sold further to multiple people, but the creator of the actual first smart contract gets a share of the primary and the secondary sales, which is really important because we don't really have that today. If I create an image, anybody in the world can buy it, and then that's the percentage I get. But after that, I don't get anything. Like if I sell it to you for $50 or whatever price, and you sell it for $50 million, I only get $50. NFTs change those things. And all NFTs are written with smart contracts. So they have lines of code associated with the token. And more simplified, an image versus NFT, which is a verifiable token. And then sometimes what is going on right now is there's so many NFT projects, everybody's trying to get whatever you can, and the one that you probably don't goes high in value. Which brings us to my next point. What is a DAO? A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. To be simply put, it's just an empowered community of people with a shared wallet, which they can use to do any transactions on the blockchain. It is global and it is permissionless. Anybody can participate and be rewarded for doing so. Ownership, you can build stuff around things that you care about. So if I care about football, I can bring a bunch of people that care about football to build some product that footballers can use and then grow that way. So it's literally a company, but in a completely different lens. And my prediction is the next Fortune 500 company will be a DAO. It operates just like a company, and people will build passionate products behind it. And DAOs actually are providing a new path towards community for any kind of organization. So as I said, companies are, they're not always global. You have to interview. It's usually not transparent. You don't know what's going on with leadership. They're hierarchical, they're tight. But DAOs, they're different. They're totally different and like a new way of thinking of how to do business. They're loose, they're transparent, they're open, they're fully global, they're permissionless, which is something that we've never seen before. And this is very important for going forward in the future because DAOs are building some really cool products. Which brings us to my next point on what is DeFi. DeFi is decentralized finance, the ecosystem that brings banking to the people. A lot of people in the world, to be specific, 1.7 billion from the last stat I read, do not have access to a bank account, which is horrible. Like you need to do anything, you need a bank account. With DeFi, you can do the three main functions that you depend on a bank for. You can borrow, you can lend, and you can grow. And all of those are done without any need for any big banking organization because the technology of blockchain can allow you to do that. So DeFi is important because DeFi kind of started off in the last 2 years. It's been around for quite a while, but in 2020, everybody had DeFi summer where a lot of people started learning about DeFi and everybody's minds were blown. And in the last 2 years, we went from almost zero to 100 billion, which is massive. And just for a reference, if DeFi was a real bank, it would be the 13th biggest bank today by assets. Which brings us to our meat of today's conversation. What really is Web3? So Web3 really is combining the previous concepts that we've known. The previous concepts that we've just studied, the internet as we know it, to make an internet better for us. It's really built to serve people over companies. In Web 1, which is where you read a lot of content, you kind of logged in and you saw a bunch of things that were published. Web 2 came your Google, your Facebook, your Twitter, all your big social media apps. You started pushing out content. But you didn't really get any ownership of your content. These companies sold your data to advertisers and they made money off of you. You just had access to information, your friends, but that was really important on a lot of different reasons. But now with Web3, you can get ownership of your own data. You can monetize your passions. So TikTok currently, for example, if you're on TikTok or your Reels, Instagram, wherever you are, you make all this content, it's really hard to monetize. They do have creator tools, but it's not a one-to-one justification of your time, which is what Web3 aims to change. And we build equity and inclusion because it's built for everybody, regardless of any constraints. And this is what Web3 is going to generally look like compared to Web 1 and Web 2. But let's take it a step further. Web 1, you only read and understood. So your Yahoo, your Netscape, your Wikipedia, all those things were kind of more part of Web 2, Web 1. Web 2, Wikipedia took it a little further, where you could actually publish information. Facebook came along, YouTube came along. So you could create content and you can also consume content, but you can't own content as of today. That's where blockchain, NFTs, DeFis, DAOs changed the game. Everything that you can create and consume, you can also build in ownership. And Web3 gives people their property rights and the ability to just own a piece of the internet on which they're creating. As of today, users get pretty much nothing. Let me just move this there. Okay. Yeah, as of today, users pretty much get nothing out of the value that they create, which is ridiculous because all the value is actually created by the users. Not as much is created by the platform. Facebook does nothing for content creation. Facebook just gives you the tools to create the content. So users, when you consume, you get nothing. When you create, you get a little bit. When you're building on top of it, so any kind of apps that you build for, say, the App Store, you're getting a little bit, but Apple's still taking 30% cut of just being able to distribute these things. And then you have your investors, which are taking the major share. Web3 is changing now all of that because everybody is just working on one common goal. Rather than evolving the company, now everybody is evolving the network and the people. So all of that is connected by tokens. You have your users, you have creators, you have builders, you have investors. So yeah, Web3 is a lot, and but it's a lot of fun. So I'm really excited. Like it's been a year that I've been a part of it, but even after a year, I'm still having a lot of fun, and I'm really excited for the next. So that brings us to today. How is the future of business going to evolve as Web3 evolves? I found the stat really interesting. What I was just saying before, Apple takes 30% cut. YouTube takes 45% of your revenue. And then Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these other platforms, they take pretty much 100%. Where OpenSea, which is a marketplace for NFTs, take up only 2.5%. That's insane. So what we're really learning is it doesn't actually take these platforms that are building and allowing us to distribute value so much money. Like we're just giving away free money to everybody else when we should be keeping a lot of those. So now people are really tired of paying to businesses. People were tired of going to work, and now remote work is kind of building up. That's why this global architecture of information is coming forward. And then people want their time to be valued. And overall, people just want to belong to different communities. So the problem is if everyone is so used to Web 2 architecture, infrastructure, business models, what really is that going to look like? We have to completely transform ourselves and look at this entire landscape in a different lens. What I just talked before, these are kind of more for their numbers. Spotify, they make 7 billion off of you. A creator made 7 billion, like that's it. On YouTube, 15 billion. On Facebook, 300 million. And look at the third line. What we're really trying to see is on Facebook, they made so much money while a regular creator, like a regular average user, only made 10 cents. On YouTube, an average channel made $405. On Spotify, the average creator made 636. But on with NFTs, the average creator made $174,000, which is just radical on what that difference is for anybody as a creator. So user-generated content is king. Spotify doesn't actually make any music. Facebook doesn't make any content. YouTube doesn't make any videos. Users make all of those platforms valuable. And we're going to see these things change with network effects. But just creators building and getting revenue doesn't really do anything. You want to reward your fans for helping you, because you would be nothing without your fan as a creator, as a business without your customers. So what kind of business models are we really looking at? Web 1, we saw emergence of e-commerce. We saw paper impression, web portals, directories, paywalls, software licenses, hardware, e-commerce, all these things evolved as we started gaining new ways of rewarding the user, where the user was actually creating value. So now, as we go forward, as of today, Web 2 looks like you have advertising, you have in-game purchases, referrals, subscriptions, software as a service, app stores, pay-per-view, streaming, marketplaces. This is what you're used to today. You have to kind of move on from there, because not too many of those are going to carry over in Web 3. You're looking more towards your UI, service layers. You're looking at learn to earn. You're looking at burning tokens, governance, exchanges, native assets, transaction fees, move to earn, staking mechanisms, shared revenue, and so much more. I know a lot of those business models don't really make sense today because they're still kind of evolving. So let me give you an example. Learn to earn. I learned a particular skill set through a company called Rabbit Hole. And they helped me understand NFTs and DeFi. Every time I did a particular task, they gave me a little token as a reward. I can go to the market and exchange that token for actual money. So I made $50 instead of spending $50 for learning a skill that is going to benefit me. Okay, so I got value, but how does Rabbit Hole as a company make money? Rabbit Hole works with different protocols, which I'm learning on, and the protocols fund Rabbit Hole to get the money. So that's how Rabbit Hole makes their money. So this is kind of the whole revolving story of how things are going to evolve as business models evolve. So how can you start if you're trying to start today? My personal suggestion is get a MetaMask wallet. You buy some Ethereum on an exchange, transfer it to MetaMask, buy an ENS domain, learn skills on Rabbit Hole, exactly what I said. If you want to take that further, join a course. If you want to level up, I did Palms Crypto Academy, which was a 1 month course. And overall, just show, don't tell. When you're interviewing with companies, if you're looking for a job in Web3, then just tell them what you've done. Share your wallet with them, and your wallet will have a list of like all the different tasks that you've performed. I had my wallet on my resume. I had my NFTs on my resume, and my manager was just blown out of the park. She's like, I've never seen something like this. So do something different by showing rather than telling. So yeah, with that, follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter. You can go on my website and then follow my company, OKCoin, link on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. So with that, I'll stop sharing and I'll kind of open it up to questions.
Thanks for that lovely presentation, Shreyas. I think you really were so patient through it all. Like you really decoded it thread by thread. Totally loved that. So I request all the participants to just raise their hands and we could take questions one by one. Okay, we have Shaunak. Please go ahead, Shaunak.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. My question is with regards to how the introduction of Web3 is going to like change the world of gaming, because that is another like really up and emerging field with respect to the digital economy that we are growing overall as a planet, and that's really taken off in the last decade or so. So I was just wondering how Web 3.0 like affects the gaming industry, and if so, if it does affect the gaming industry, like what does the future look like in terms of like, will it be an overall positive or will there be no significant change?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I didn't particularly dive into gaming, but gaming is definitely evolving, and it's not going to be left behind. And the way it's evolving is today, when you're gaming, you're just spending your time and you're not really doing anything. But I've seen games. I know I personally don't, but I know my friends play like poker on chain, and they've made money, like betting on horses and kind of making money. So overall, what I'm really trying to say is it will affect gaming, and a lot of companies like Ubisoft, Microsoft, they're all like paying attention to how they can involve blockchain in their gaming ecosystems and actually reward the user. So does that like overall answer your question, if it just generally will affect gaming or not?
Yeah, that pretty much covered it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Arnav, please go ahead.
Good evening, Shreyas. First of all, thank you for your insightful session. It was, we always used to hear such things in wave and a lot of people, but first time I am hearing who is actually implementing this thing. So that's a really nice, and you showcase also that the guideline, how to start, like I don't have any introduction to that. So that's great. So going forward, as I have seen in a presentation also, what I feel is that this Web 3.0 will need a lot of like training, resource development kind of thing. People need to know what it is, and also they need to know the securities, because this will be a decentralized system. So everybody is the owner of the system. So this is a huge challenge, what I feel personally. And the second thing will be that the hardware, the existing hardware may not support this Web 3.0. So how do you think that the future companies, organizations going to challenge this, tackle this challenge? That will be my question to you.
Yeah, so I feel from the way you structure your question, there's two parts to your question, right? One
Yes.
is how exactly are the hardware challenges going to be met? And secondly, how should people prepare for security? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So yes, security is a very big component, just generally cryptocurrency in general. That's why even in my start, starting here today, I didn't say buy your crypto and just leave it on an exchange. You're moving it out to a non-custodial wallet. When you do that, you're going to have to write down your 12 letter password, which is a cryptographic key. So in like just understanding how to move one thing to another, like don't move, don't buy like $100 and move all of it right away. Buy $100, move 10 back, like, try those type of things and understand. And then the next step in that evolution will be a hardware wallet, which is the most secure. So anything that touches the internet in general is prone to data breaches. That's something that we all can accept now. Like in the past, your data has been hacked by data that has been sitting with Gmail, with HubSpot, with Salesforce. Like everybody's been hacked. It's just you didn't care enough because it didn't harm you as much. Yes. But with this new wave, you do want to take more precautions because if you're getting the power to do something, you also need to have the empowerment to protect yourself against it. So those are some new things that we just have to learn, because like in the past, you had to learn how to use a computer. You had to learn how to use Excel. Like, these little things that you use today that are like so normal, back in the day we're not. So that's how I see it evolving. Hardware wise, don't really see too much change for a user. People will need to adapt to new hardware, but because of the way we're living right now with cloud technology, so Salesforce, one of the biggest CRM providers, they brought on NFT Cloud like 2 days ago. So now as a brand, if you're working in a business, you don't necessarily need to have your own hardware to create and mint smart contract. You don't need to do all that complex stuff. Salesforce taking care of you. So there will be these sort of providers that will help you. So hardware won't necessarily be as big of a barrier as we had in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So I think there's some disturbance. Okay. So Shreyas, next up we have Ayush. He's one of our alums. He's very excited to talk to you. Ayush, please go.
Yeah.
I think I've seen you somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, so my question is, so we saw how the NFT of the first tweet, the value plunged because essentially there were no buyers. So how do you account for that instability in prices over time? I mean, eventually it might stabilize, but right now we have no idea on what anything might be worth because it's like a completely new thing. So how in the short term and in the long term do we account for that price instability for NFTs?
Yeah, so that's a good question. A lot of people are playing around with NFT right now just to understand and just because of the hype. Like if like Michael Jordan comes out with a basketball NFT, it's like, oh yes, I need to get it because it's Michael Jordan and the value is gonna go up, etc. I use a very simple framework for understanding and like evaluating that for myself. What I use is 1, how much do I believe in the project? 2, do I really care about making a short-term profit, or do I care about being in the community for a longer term? Let me give you an example of that. There was a little community of just 100 people called Proof. And this was launched by this guy who used to do investments at Google. And he said, just as an experiment, I'm going to give you everybody this membership card. And we're going to form this little community of 1,000 people. And we're going to talk about like which NFTs are going to be valuable. Nobody really expected that, but the membership card, the value of that went to like 99 ETH, which is like $200,000 as of like today. So the value is really what you want to do with it. If you want to do a short-term flip, then I would just play around with different analyzing tools like Dune Analytics, etc. But if you want to be in the long-term, like in the game for the long run, then you need to keep price behind and just look at what you're gaining out of it. Is that valuable for you going into the future?
Right, makes sense. It's good to see you after so long.
Same.
Okay, Riti, you could go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the great session. And this is definitely a new concept of for us, Web 3.0. So I have two questions. One is Web 3.0 is highly decentralized as compared to 2.0, but giants like Google, Facebook, Amazon, they have immense user data credentials. So they might affect the buying habits and behaviors also. So how quickly this 3.0 becomes the same as 2.0? And my second question is that from last few decades, it can be observed that India is following the path of developed countries. So, is it possible for India to lead the front in Web 3.0?
That's a great question that you brought on, like right for India, and I'm really excited about that for sure. So first part of the question is how quickly can Web3 become Web2? Answer for that is very quickly. Instagram launching NFTs is gonna, basically Instagram wants your wallet activity, and then they'll target you by wallet instead of by email or by profile. The same thing Salesforce is trying to do, like when you get your NFTs by through some brand, they're connecting different sources, and they're basically like target you on Instagram based on if you bought a shoe NFT, something like that. Like just think of it that way. So having that little wall between the two is very important, but also having a way for you as a user to control what data you're giving out to the companies is also important. So for example, if you have a bunch of data about your purchasing habits, if you're okay with being advertised for something based on that, then you should have the control to give it out rather than somebody just taking everything that you do online. If you don't, so overall, that's kind of how that flow can be broken down or not broken down. And then second thing is India. India is actually in a very, very good state. There are so many amazing startups. There's so many amazing people, community managers, builders, product managers that I've met that are from India. And actually one of the biggest NFT protocol, like generally like one of the biggest Ethereum based protocol is named Polygon. If you haven't heard of it, I would definitely look it up. Polygon is an Indian startup. It was started by two guys who are in India. Like they attend all these US sessions, all these like Twitter spaces, and they talk with like people in bunch of brands and bunch of sessions. They're in India. The entire team is India. They're just now building a US entity. But Polygon is one of the fastest growing Ethereum like level 2 solutions, which will basically make Ethereum scaling a lot easier, faster, and cheaper. And somebody like only Indians can come up with, like amazing ways for making things faster, cheaper, and better, because we know our problems of the number of users that we have and how important like making things scalable is for us. So, which is why I think India is in a great position to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for the answers.
Survey, please go ahead.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, Shreyas.
Hi.
Shreyas, I too have a couple of questions. So firstly, as per current stats, like almost 80% of cryptos and NFT market is owned by almost or close to 9% of account holders. So will Web 3.0 like decentralize this? And if it does, then to what extent?
Yeah, so your stat right now is true, because true based on the fact that early holders had so much involvement in it, and as the like demand grew, the people like the value of these currency grew. So if back in the day I was listening or reading about Bitcoin or Ethereum, then I bought a lot for $100. If you bought today for $100, I have more Ethereum than you, so I have more purchasing power than you. So yes, that one is still a little not as equal distribution of power. But the way I see it is it will evolve is in a way that now we're taking the power from everybody that was like, kind of got rich in Web 2 and giving it to different people. We're giving it to the builders, the coders. So at this point, I see that financial power being put more to use than to personal profit, which is where I think it's a little different. Does that help answer the question?
Absolutely. So that means Web 3.0 will kind of be like the Robin Hood of the new internet.
Yeah, kind of, because literally, like every like we call them whales in the language, right? The people that have a lot of money, and whales are putting a lot of money towards building protocols. They're giving a lot of money towards actually funding these different projects, these different dApps, decentralized applications, as they're called. And at least right now, because we're in a bear market, it's great because there's no hype about, like, all these like crazy amounts of money just being wasted all over the place. They're actually being put to use. So when we come out of this bear market, we'll see a lot of really cool applications.
Thank you, Shreyas. Shreyas, I have one more question, which is with Web 3.0, is there a likelihood of other currencies taking over Bitcoin? And if yes, then what are a few currencies that we could keep an eye on?
Yes, that's a interesting question, because that kind of goes on the little fine line of investing, which I don't particularly want to do. But think about it this way. Bitcoin is really trying to be the decentralized financial instrument that is more property. So Bitcoin is not trying to replace dollars or rupees. Bitcoin is really trying to replace gold. It is trying to be an inflation hedge. So as right now we're in a very bad state, right? Like US just reported 8.15% inflation, but Bitcoin is going to play out a lot better in the longer term, just as a store of value. And the reason for that is just purely economics. Is there's a limited supply of Bitcoin. If anybody didn't know that, it's 21 million. And there will be no Bitcoin more than that ever. The last Bitcoin will be mined in 2140, and that will be it. Ethereum is not like that. There is no other currency that has a limited cap at this point. Everyone just keeps generating blocks over blocks, but the use case is different. Ethereum is meant more for solving the problem of internet and data. And like Web3, I would say, is very heavily Ethereum based. It's not as much Bitcoin based at this point. It can change in the future as Bitcoin evolves. But that's like your little bit answer. And some protocols I would keep an eye on is Ethereum, Polygon that I mentioned, and Solana. Those are like the 4 big ecosystems where a lot of building is happening.
Thank you, Shreyas.
Okay, Shaunak, you can go next.
Hi, I just had one more follow-up question. It's along a different vein, but so I was wondering, how would Web 3.0 redefine the way venture capitalists invest? Because that's, you hear a lot of shift, especially now, with the market downturn and whatnot, in the way like when venture capitalists are changing like investment strategies. So if Web 3.0 becomes this firmly established thing, how would that redefine venture capital investment? And would there consequently be a considerable shift towards investment in IPs?
Yeah, so that's a great question, which is a very divided line right now with the Jack Dorsey camp and everybody in VC camp. So Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, kind of doesn't want any VC involvement in this new era of the internet that we're talking about. And then meanwhile, every other VC camp wants to help fund all the protocols that are building. And in return, they do want something, right? Like they're giving you all this money for building whatever businesses that you want to build, and they're expecting some sort of return. The difference is how they're expecting returns and what they're expecting returns. They're expecting returns more in the form of ownership that is shared with the audience that they're building for, which looks like tokens in one of the graphs that I showed you. Tokens are kind of shared out, and VC is free to kind of dump in the simplest way any amount of tokens that they feel as the protocol kind of matures out, or they're free to hold, which will take up the value if the supply, the demand for it increases. And then IP is also kind of changing on its heads, because IP, as we're previously used to, is now being challenged. With NFTs, you have evolving IPs, and I'm seeing a new trend with a lot of NFTs launching as CCO, which is Creative Commons, which means if I own a certain IP, like say Mickey Mouse, if I own Mickey Mouse, I'm putting it up as CCO, then anybody on this call is free to take that IP and do anything they want with it. That's Creative Commons. A lot of NFT projects right now are testing that idea with Creative Commons. And if you're curious, I would look at Nouns, just nouns.wtf as an example for amazing things that they're doing with Creative Commons.
Thanks for answering that, Shreyas. We have next Ashwin.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Shreyas. Thank you for the session. I just wanted to ask you a question, mostly because of what hindered me into getting into the world of NFTs or cryptocurrencies. Like I was late into the market, mostly because when in 2017 or around that area, when I was actually looking into this, the government had actually put up restrictions in India, and we were not able to trade, and we had to call our friends in New Zealand or Canada and ask them to transfer it through their wallets and stuff. My question is, if 3.0 is going to be based on Ethereum or any altcoins compared to the fiat coins that we use for fiat currencies that we use for Web 2.0, and suppose if any of the governments want to introduce any controls, how do we play around with it? Like, how do you tackle it? Or what will be the future of Web 3.0 in that particular condition?
So I'd want to address the first point for anybody listening is I wouldn't say you're late. Even if you think you are, you're not. You're actually very early. Only 3.6% people from the world's population actually own any NFTs or even have cryptocurrency. So you're very, very early. So let's put that one to rest. Other than that, just generally how governments will perceive this is something that's not in our control, but because of the decentralized nature of it, you're always eligible to participate in any ecosystem. What you're not eligible to do if a government bans it is convert your profit to the government currency that your government actually controls. So if I sell an NFT and try to convert it to dollars and put it into my bank for profits, that is what they can really control. Other than that, they can't really control anything because of how global and decentralized the nature of this thing is. Yes, there should be regulations. There should be clear guidelines on what people can do and what people can't. But in general, the more governments restrict people in trying to participate, the worse it is for future-proofing their economy. It's like when, how China kind of bans a bunch of social media platforms. They don't really participate in everything outside, but because of how much volume they have inside, a lot of people just kind of build things up just for the Chinese market. And I think that's kind of what will happen if a country bans it.
So India, in case of Indian government decides to ban trading on cryptocurrencies or something, we might come up with something. I had heard of that we are planning to come up with some cryptocurrencies on our own, which would be under government's control. So something like that would come up, and still Web 3.0 can survive. Is that
Web3 can survive regardless of what any government does. What I think you're talking about is Indian government, including CBDCs, which is a stable coin pegged to the Indian rupee.
Yeah. Thank you.
If that happens, it's basically just a digital rupee. That will be very interesting to see how they build it and how it evolves for the Indian audience. But talking about a global stage, I don't see it making too much of a difference in you participating, because you're always free to participate. That's the nature of how it's designed.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Ankit.
Yeah, thank you, Arya. Hi, Shreyas.
Hi.
Yeah, my question is related to like just before few minutes you gave an example of Michael Jordan. Like if he's supports some of the cryptocurrencies, automatically the cost of that crypto will go very high. And if some of the very famous personalities give any negative impact, it will come low. So, like my question is, the universally accepted big people like Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, or it's of Rakesh Jhunjhunwala from India. So they are not like right now agreeing to accept all these NFTs or cryptocurrencies. So, what challenges do you see, and how you wanna tackle such challenges to convince them? Because a lot of followers are there who are investing in stocks and other markets based on their feedback. So, how you gonna overcome all these challenges?
The challenges that can only be overcome by actually providing value and utility to the actual people that are participating. Anybody that is not participating, they're never going to know what's really happening. But people that are participating, if they're getting the true value, if they're actually enjoying it, if they're profiting from it, they're going to talk to their friends, and that's how network effect develops. And once there is network effects, it'll probably change the minds of those people which have not taken as much time to do their research about how it can evolve.
Okay, but one more question in addition to this is, uh, till when we can accept this to be a universally accepted, like the like now we are using various types of currencies depending on the country. So what timeline do you see that it will be accepted on a universal basis for each and every activity, like for paying, doing the payments and all in that way?
I can't really define a timeline on when I can see it, but what I can say is there's a lot of banks right now, like very, very big banks like JP Morgan, like Bank of America, Fidelity. All these people are taking at least Bitcoin and Ethereum on their balance sheets, and they're talking about introducing products to their various audiences. So if more banks kind of try to do that and introduce those things, and further, when US kind of clarifies the regulation a little bit, Europe wants to also kind of, if so, two things: businesses and governments kind of both need to work together for that answer to kind of come to fruition.
Okay, so can I assume that it's US going to be the major player for this type of NFTs? Because if US from government side backs it, the entire world probably will follow the US. Am I correct?
That's a pattern we've seen, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it. Some countries that I've seen doing very interesting things are Singapore as well as Europe.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have Kumar Gautam.
Hello, Shreyas. Thanks for the session. My question was regarding, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So my question was regarding blockchain technology. How can it find its way to the election process of the country?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question that I have seen some solutions in the form of white papers about how it can find itself, because there's two things that it'll kind of help solve. One is that anything that is, like corruption will kind of eradicate itself because everything is clear, transparent, and everybody knows it. The problem where it becomes complex is how people really vote and identity. So before it goes into the election process, Web3 really needs to solve the problem of how it can connect like you as a person and your digital identity kind of together. So what I'm really trying to say is, if we do put government like elections online today, you are one person, but you have 5 wallets. You can go in and vote 5 times with each wallet. That's not how elections work. So unless and until we find that way of limiting just one vote, one wallet, one person, the way I see it evolving is if we can tie your licenses to become NFTs, then some way, shape, or form you can try. There's something called soulbound tokens, which Vitalik, who is the founder of Ethereum, wrote a white paper on. These are non-transferable NFTs. So NFTs right now, you can transfer it to anybody. Any NFT you can transfer it. But these will be like it's bound to your identity. And once those technologies kind of are more mature, then they can find their way over into elections.
So however it's possible. So in the
It is
future,
possible.
so we can envision a future wherein this technology can come in the system and it can become a part of the election processes.
It is absolutely possible because that's what DAOs are doing. DAOs are using voting power to do governance decisions. So it's kind of testing itself out in a DAO right now. So once we have different lessons learned on what type of models are working, then we can extend it out to like more political decisions.
Thank you. That answers my question.
Okay, so we've had like a lot of questions. Finally, moving to the last question for the session. Vivek, please go ahead.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Hi, Shreyas. Actually, I have to be honest, I have a very little knowledge about this crypto, and so my genuine concern is regarding for mining for any cryptocurrency, it consumes a lot of electricity. And how do you think it's going to affect affect the global economy or global warming? Because somewhere the whole world is moving towards to reduce the carbon footprint. And my second question is, how do you find it can find its place in a country like India, where mostly around 70% the peoples are in a rural backside? So how do you think they can use, or they can like take it on a general level or common level by generating so much electricity, and how it's possible? Actually, I don't find a clear opportunity how it's going to enlarge to a global level like a normal currency it does.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. So there's a couple of different levels to that answer. Number one is the general narrative that you've heard is, mining uses a lot of electricity. That is something called proof of work, which I didn't really go into in my presentation, but overall, everybody is using computing power to basically get rewarded. And proof of work is evolving as we speak. The way to combat that is incentives. So I'll give you some examples on how different places are actually helping the planet by consuming excess energy rather than wasting energy. So I have a friend in Canada, and he mines, but in the winter, he uses the excess energy from his miner to heat his entire house. He doesn't use any energy from like the government during the winter, and Canadian winters are long.
Yeah,
so
but okay,
I understand. I'm just trying to say that there's innovation taking place on how you can basically combat that narrative. The second way is scaling on layer 2. So right now, every single thing that happens on the blockchain has to be declared to every single person, like every single node. As layer 2s, like a layer on top of that is being built, you don't have to do that. Like you can basically tell the blockchain once every million transaction, every billion transaction. That will reduce the consumption of energy. So that's like the second part of your answer. Government of Ecuador, they made Bitcoin legal tender. They're using volcanic power to mine Bitcoin. So like those kind of evolutions in how you can actually help the planet rather than going against it are going to just evolve as incentives keep getting better.
Yeah, I understood your first question regarding the usage of electricity in the more beneficial way. But my concern is, how do you find it in a normal general livelihood of every citizen? Because the process which you have explained, it must be on very large scale, and the manufacturing and technology setup should be means vast enough and advanced level to use it on that level. So recently, I have also started mining, and what I have understood means I'm using a 2 graphics card and on a very low level. So I understood a general like general aspect. I don't find means how in the normal rural area, how do we convince to the normal means the local peoples or who don't have much knowledge, much information regarding all this. And one more my genuine concern is, do you think there will be a security reasons also, because we don't, Indian government don't have much regularity or regulation regarding the means the usage or develop mining. So how do you think there can be misuse of like in the opposite or in a alternative use of currency in spite of like funding any terrorist activities or something? This can be also done in crypto. So how do you find these challenges?
Yeah, actually, it's if any terrorist activity wants to use crypto or blockchain, they're really stupid because everything is so public. It's actually very easy to trace wallet to wallet activities of like, so if big money moves around, it's very easy to trace and identify where all these flows are going. And in the past, yes, there have been like very big scams, but scams are everywhere. It's just once a scam happens, people are paying very like careful
Yeah,
attention
yeah,
to
even I heard
where
the
the
same
money is
because
flowing. You just
yes,
follow the money.
they were exchanging currency in the for crypto. And do you think it can be misused in this way because the government don't have that regulation? And I see government also is not looking to promote much. They have also introduced 30% flat tax on the crypto trading. Even it's loss or profit, you have to pay. So how do you think it's?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is just people are limited to what they know. So right
Yeah,
now they're just like, Indians really want to use cryptocurrency, but we don't know what to do because we haven't really found a way to control it, or we haven't found a very general understanding on how we as a government can benefit from it. So let's just impose tax for now, let people use it, we'll get some money, and then while we'll continue our studying to that, the US kind of did the same thing. Like they're talking about different ways, but there was a recent bill introduced which talks about it in a different light. So what I'm trying to get at is, there will be people that I hope there will be people that come in and introduce better ways of, just rather than this 30% tax, hey, let's think about it a little different. Let's give the people more power to do these things. Let us as a country participate in this. Let's lead in this rather than letting US lead it. Let's show them how to do it. That's what my hope is in a positive world where India can lead the future for what we're building.
Okay, thank you for.
Because I do think like there's some really smart Indian people that are building in every protocol. Like a lot of
I know
like
most
really
of, but
smart
there
people
is
that
a
I follow are Indian. So I hope they're also advising to the government on what they can do and what they shouldn't do.
Okay, one more last question, if you allow me. As far as my research and limited information, I have heard that China is not very much investing in US cryptos. They have this sort of practice that all the Chinese people, they have to invest or trade in the cryptocurrency of their own governments. So do you think India will also copy, or they will also try to implicate the same idea instead of investing in foreign currency or foreign crypto? How soon can we see our own Indian crypto or our own market in this place?
I think the question for governments to answer is, what are they really optimizing for? If they really want to just prioritize their own country and their own government rather than participating in a global economy, because import export is a very, very big deal for any country, right? China is working on a completely different business model, completely different government model. So maybe what they're testing out, I don't know how it plays out for them, but I don't think we should follow their footsteps.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Shreyas, so much for patiently taking all our questions. We've been excited through your session, and that completely shows. And really loved how you took us through the presentation bit by bit, right from the basics of DeFi's to DAOs and a lot more. You've been absolutely amazing at this. And thank you so much for breaking down Web 3.0 for us. I thank you on behalf of the badge for this lovely session and meeting us specially on a weekend. So that a special thanks for that. You've been absolutely fantastic, Shreyas. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And yeah, one thing I kind of forgot to even touch on is you mentioned Web3 Chutney. That was a podcast I started earlier in January to kind of educate my friends and family about basic concepts. I am actually working on pivoting that strategy right now, and I'll be taking more interviews with people. So the second kind of season will launch soon.
That's really great. Looking forward to it, and I'm sure we're all going to go check it out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shreyas. It's been lovely having you over.
Same. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Shreyas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shreyas.
Thank you.
Thanks.